Welcome to the Globetrottin ADs. This podcast is for you, athletic directors, activity coordinators, coaches, and program associates based in international schools around the world. The Globetrottin ADs is proudly hosted by Nick DeForest from the American International School of Vienna and Matt Fleming from the American International School of Budapest. Here they are now, Nick and Matt and the Globetrottin ADs.
Hey there, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of the Globetrottin ADs. We're here in episode 20 of season number 5. We're cruising right along, and we're heading down the home stretch. We're really heading down the home stretch now, round and third, just about, really, Nick.
Yeah.
Because we have, here in Budapest, we got about 2 weeks left. I know you're a little closer to the end than we are, but we still got some things to talk about, which I think people will enjoy, and we're happy to have a guest today, Tom Hobbins from the International School of Hamburg. So we got a cool topic today. We had a little brainstorm session on a chat the other day, Nick and I, about, well, what are you doing now at the end of the year? What kind of stuff are you doing? And he's telling me what he's up to, and then I'm telling him what I'm up to. And I thought, hey, that'd be kind of a cool podcast. Let's talk about what people are doing at the end of the school year. So this episode is entitled Wrapping Up. So we're going to talk with Tom. We got some other feedback as well from other ADs out there. And we're just sharing ideas, and maybe we can all get some ideas from each other about something you can do at the end of the year to prepare for next year or nicely wrap up your current year. So, looking forward to what we're going to chat about. So,
let's wrap it up. Let's wrap up the podcast season as well with this one. And Tom, I want to give you a second to say who you are and what you do and all that stuff. But I need to first tell everyone how I first met you, or we met each other. Was at the Coaching for a Greater Purpose conference. It was after a opening session or whatever, sitting there for dinner. And then someone sits down beside me, and I hear him talking to the people beside him about how there was a German train strike and he had to drive, and the highway was packed, and all he did was listen to podcast episodes the whole way to the conference. And at one point, I think I turned to you and said, hey, you weren't listening to the Globetrottin ADs, were you? And you said, yes, you were. So that's how we met, Tom, and glad to have you on the podcast today. Welcome.
Yeah, it's good to be on. That was a funny encounter, because I remember sitting there and hearing your voice, and I was like, I know this voice. I've been listening to it all day. And it was like a weird kind of celebrity moment where I was like, oh, the guy that I listened to. And there was a face to the voice and everything. Sure. So I'd listen to 5 hours of the podcast all the way down. So it's great. It's cool to be on. I was a little bit surprised when you messaged saying, hey, do you want to come on the pod? I was like, yes.
Perfect.
So excited. Do my best. It's my first time on a pod, so here we go.
Perfect.
So I'm from Hamburg, and originally from Scotland, and I've been here now at the school. This is the end of my 4th year, and it's been pretty roller coaster since I started, because I started August 2020, which was peak pandemic, and it was such a strange time to become an AD at a new school. And then I had my first child in October. So I started August, peak pandemic, new life as an AD, first child in October. And it was a proper whirlwind. So it's been 4 years, but I guess it's really, sometimes it feels more like 2.5, because that first year was lockdown and remote and all these kind of things. But and originally from Scotland, and love Scotland to bits. They're amazing, and I'm loving life in Germany. Pretty settled. We've got one child, and we've settled down, bought a house, and living in the countryside now. So I don't actually live in Hamburg anymore. So I'm a proper country person now. That's and cool. Life's good. Can't complain.
Super. That's great. That makes 3 of us, right? Matt's outside of Budapest. I'm just outside of Vienna. So we're all in the same boat. Yeah, super.
Yeah, and it's a funny one in international school, because you're settled, and you're now that you're not really going to be leaving. You're staying in that place, whereas everything else is always in transition, like all the people or whatever. So it's a different approach, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. we're wrapping up our years, and we're all coming back. The three of us, at least, to our schools next year. It's not one of those wrapping up where you're gone for good, because I'm sure that's a little bit different than all the things that we're doing. But Matt, you mentioned we have some feedback from other people, so I wrote a few friends and got some answers. So we're gonna mix them into what we're doing, and maybe give everybody out there some things that they should be doing if they're not already. Sure. Yeah, let's get at it. So how do you close out the school year, basically? And Tom, start us off. One thing, we can just go back and forth on one or two things. But what do you try to get done before you leave? What's on your list? Like, I got to finish this before I leave for the summer.
I guess the main priority has to be you're looking at your calendar and you're making sure that is nailed down before you start that new school year. And that is something that's not easy to do, because sometimes there's things that are completely out of your control. Like I had a fixture planned in October, and it's like a 6-7 hour bus journey away. And then that school said, hey, our coaches, that's too far. We don't want to do that. And that's fine. Like, I get it. Like, if they're teaching and they've got other things, and I'm like, man, that's a 7 hour bus journey. Then that fixture's gone. So you want to really have all of that planned out before the school year starts. And you want to make sure that okay, what's going to be happening. Some stuff maybe in the spring you don't have to have fully nailed down, but yeah, it's calendar, and nailing down your own school as well. Yeah. Getting them nailed down to say, hey, we're going to be doing all these things, because they're also trying to work out and probably not be a little bit non-committal on some things, but you want to get as much as you can nailed down.
Absolutely. Yeah, we had a big calendar meeting in our office, but that's definitely on our list. Just in-house things too, so they don't, we have a tournament on this weekend, so you can't have a choir concert, on that Friday night, that kind of thing. And of course, almost everybody that I wrote said the same thing, calendars. So my question to you, Matt, is your calendar for next year done already? Is it something you're working on?
Yeah, so we have 3 big calendar meetings before the end of the year. We just had the third one last year, which I couldn't attend because I was on an online meeting, of course, with my SCIS colleagues. But, in that meeting is myself, each divisional principal, our activities coordinator, the PSA rep. There's a couple other people. So yeah, it's a full group meeting where we go through everything with a fine tooth brush, just to make sure everything's correct, right? And make sure there's no overlaps. And it's nice too, because a lot of the people who been doing that, we've been doing it together for a number of years. So we can get through it pretty quickly. And if there's a change that needs to be made or an adjustment, we quickly know who to contact to sort it out, or come back to it later, or we know who to ask to get a confirmation about something. So that's helpful. But yeah, it's been a lot.
Right. Yeah, we just finished, Matt, you and I, some exchanges, right? Like, I think you have your conference dates are kind of fixed, right? Some of these things, your tryout week, easy, stuff like that. But, we have a triangular Prague, Budapest, and just this week, right? We locked down those dates for next year and where we're going. So yeah, super, super important to get done.
It's always so hard to get some of those done as well, because you might find as well that some of the other schools, their October break is definitely not aligned with yours. And so if you have that situation where, for example, when we go, okay, Amsterdam's got theirs this week in October, but in Dusseldorf, theirs is theirs, and ours is this week, you're losing 6 weekends. Yeah. So it's always really, really tough with that, especially in that fall season.
There's always the same question from people like, well, why can't everybody just be on the same calendar?
Yeah.
Totally. Like, really.
We deal with Swiss schools. We found out every canton in Switzerland kind of has their own special holidays. So one canton could be having a holiday while the other one doesn't, like state holidays, I guess, if you're from North America. So that was an interesting thing to find out, but because they lose quite a bit. So getting common weekends is a real challenge especially for those exchanges as well. Yeah.
The next item on my list, which I just completed last week, is order uniforms to be delivered right either over summer or at the start of the year. so that's a big one for me. Rick Floyd and Todd Parnham also said the same. Are you guys doing that?
Yep. I just had a meeting today about that as well. I want to get some new volleyball uniforms for our high school boys and girls team. So I had a meeting about that with their local rep. So hopefully that'll get done while I'm gone over the summer.
Right.
I have a love-hate relationship with uniforms because, like, the whole uniform thing can be amazing. It can be so good, and you can have like a really great uniform, and you can really imagine how it's going to look. But like logistics and distribution and all of those things is a total stress headache.
Yeah.
Because you know, it's like Christmas. Like all those students and parents are like, "Yay, we're going to get our new tracksuits and uniforms." And you know, if you get an email from your supplier being like, "Yeah, so we had an issue, it's not going to arrive by this time," then you're just telling a bunch of people, "Hey, all those presents are not coming."
Yeah.
So it's really difficult. And like I remember the first year when I started, we used to have a supplier here in Hamburg that we used, but that supplier basically completely closed down. So we had to completely find a new supplier, find a new approach, and we went with this like online provider and do distribution that way where they could order online, and it was just a disaster. Like it was just one problem after another. And we're now going with like a similar thing that we originally had, which was a local supplier, and we're working really well with them, and they're amazing. They're so good. But yeah, I remember like this whole wrap-up process going on holiday. I went on holiday to Porto in Portugal, and I remember being on holiday and then like sneaking off to a cafe to do like a meeting with a uniform supplier and being like, "Hey, you know, can you do this? Can we do this? We need it by this time." And like you're making all this like agreements, and then when it falls through, you just have all this frustration. So yeah, fortunately, the good thing is like we're in a good place now where we're really getting the ball rolling on a lot of things. But yeah, it can be really nerve-wracking, I find, the whole uniform thing.
Well, not with Cookery. That's who I did my order with. And we'll hear from them right now. Cookery are a global multi-sport clothing brand specializing in providing the world's most prestigious schools with bespoke made and designed team uniforms for students of all standards and abilities. If you are frustrated by inconsistent colors, branding, costs, and sizing across your school's uniforms, then it's time to discuss an offering where every sport is available from softball to soccer for male and female athletes at rates to suit your budget. To find out how Cookery could elevate the apparel of your student athletes to a professional level, email the team at contact@cookerysports.com. A dedicated sales manager will offer you a quote today. Mention this ad and receive a special offer on your coach or PE staff order. All right, Matt, what's your next on your list for the
for me?
Yeah, or it doesn't have to be the next in priority or something, but what's another thing that
no, but like this week I've been doing, so we have a capital expenditures program, I guess, at our school, or procedure. So, you know, major expenses for big pieces of equipment, big ticket items. So I finally got around to wrapping that up this past week. So we're going to get some cool new stuff, which is good because we have a lot of grounds, as you know. So some new high jump storage garage, which is big news, and a batting cage net, new fitness room equipment. So it's been a lot of work just finalizing the details and working with the purchasing officer. We is a new guy, and but actually it's been great, very smooth. So we're in good shape with getting new stuff, and just finding out that we got some money, we can spend it. That's always exciting. It's like Christmas is in June, like you're talking about Christmas presents.
Yeah.
Like we'll see it when we get back in August. So which is.
Tom, what about you? Are you buying stuff now for the whole year, for the fall?
Yeah, like looking ahead at like the fall season already, like definitely footballs is always in that end of year like order, like the amount of balls that we just go through. But looking at other equipment that we really need, like some of the big stuff, like for track, we might need a few things like discus or shot put stuff, but I think because we co-determine it with the head of the PE department. I mean, they're doing a lot of that big stuff, which, trampolines and things like that. That's a lot of their stuff.
Yep.
And my stuff is more like specific stuff for tournaments. So the match balls as well, like that kind of stuff, but nothing too major.
Nothing big. Cool. Well, what's something else you're doing? You're next in the order, Tom? What's something else on your list?
What's next?
Yeah.
Well, nailing down coaches like that. Yeah. That is also a big thing. You've got to get your coaches nailed down, and it's so hard. And I feel like June, like when I was thinking about what to talk about, I was like, June is really like, it's one of the most important months that you have. It's also the most dangerous month because all your tournaments and your friendlies, it's like you wrap up really end of May before graduation, your tournaments are done. And it's a total come down afterwards as an AD, I find that I'm just like mentally crashing because I'm just like, man, you don't need to plan like any more trips or tournaments, and you're done. So you need that kind of mental recovery. But if you use it too early, then you don't get enough of the planning stuff done to kickstart August. So if you fall behind in June, August is then behind, and then it just kind of snowballs. So I find that you want to nail down everything you can in June, and it's super hard with coaches because we're shifting timetable at the moment, and so not every teacher knows their timetable for next year. So they might be like, I don't know what my timetable is, so I can't commit to coaching. So you're then gambling that in August they say, I can still coach that team. And it's hard. Like, it's really hard to get everyone nailed down, and you ideally want to use as many internal staff as possible because they know the structures, they know the students, they know how all of it works. I mean, my best preference is to have two coaches, like an outside coach and an internal coach, because I find that they just like offer and complement each other. They offer different things. Yeah. But two coaches sometimes feels like a luxury. Like you're really scrambling sometimes days up to the season start that you're getting a coach. But I would say getting those coaches prepped early.
Yeah, that's a big. Luckily, I for me, I know a lot of my people are coming back, but I still have to. I always do an annual form I send out with a Google form. It's like an intention form to let me know what you want to do, and it's pretty laid out. And I always include the calendar because everybody wants to know what the calendar is or where the trips are going to go, which can be an enhancement too, right? But that's also a time where people get excited a little bit too. So you got to try to. I'm always trying to pump it up and make it, it's coming around the corner. They might know kids are coming up from middle school to high school or something like that. So, or another side too, we find out like kids are leaving because then all of a sudden, the last minute, the kids are finding out, oh, my dad's getting transferred. We just found out, and that kid's not coming back in August. So that's kind of a bummer. So you kind of have to work through all that stuff when you're going through this time of year with getting coaches and getting kids in order for stuff and trying to get clubs in order too for next year. Like I'm trying to get my athletic council set for next year. So when we go back to August, we can hit the ground running. So we got a nice handbook in place and all of our guidelines are there and what we're going to do is in place. But it's every day. There's still something little pieces that need to be tidied up or just tick boxes I need to do as we go through these final stages of the school year.
Yeah,
there's no kicking back and just looking out the window.
I always feel like with coaches as well, it's tough sometimes those conversations because they're also tired from the year and they're like,
everybody's going fried.
Oh, man, I need a wrap up. Like I need a summer, and then can we talk about it in August? But that like when you have that conversation in August, they're like, oh, I've got to get my class and my planning all done. Like I'm focused on that first couple of weeks. So it's like you've really got to push them hard to say, no, we're going to do it now in June because otherwise August always runs away. Right. We did a big coaches get together like Kickstarter 2 years ago in August, and it was good. Last year we didn't make that happen because everyone I felt was just like, I'm too focused on that beginning of the year. So now we've pulled it back early to June, and we'll see how that goes. And trying to just get everyone really reflecting, but also just kind of questioning what do we want to achieve next year and get that done early.
You mentioned it's a great balance, right? You mentioned getting as much done as you can in June, even though you need a break. But if you put things off till August, everything else is firing up, So it's like no perfect time, but you gotta do as much as you can in June. I totally agree, because it's just fresh also in your mind, things you want to change or things you want to wrap up. But one thing that 3 or 4 people wrote me is that the one thing they really do now is to write a to-do list for August, because they know what they're putting off. They write that to-do list for August now, so when they come in, they know, bam, they don't forget over the summer stuff that you hadn't done in June, right? So leaving a to-do list for yourself.
I remember the end of the first year I was AD here. I was at the track tournament, and it was in Antwerp.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember, in fact, it wasn't even the first year. It would have been my second year, because the first year we were in lockdown, I think. So the second year, I wrote a huge, like, not to-do list, but like, if you imagine there's no budgets, there's nothing. Imagine, what do you imagine everything to look like? And you take everything, like 2 coaches per team. Every coach has like a full training attire and like a full, like, imagine everything's perfect. And then you just write down everything, like a film crew who are like streaming your games for everything. So you do like a real wish list.
Yeah.
And at the end of each year, you go back to that list and you add stuff to it. Also tick stuff off that you go, this is like the dream of what we want it to be. And some of it's really small. Like, okay, the big stuff of like having a film crew who's like documenting the entire year. So your end of year video isn't just pictures, it's video footage. That's like a dream thing. But small things, sometimes as simple as like when the buses are leaving the school, there's a flag of our team in the back window. So when they're driving on the motorway, they're like flag of the team. Like simple, small things like that. I'm always like that. I think those small things alongside the big things, you got to just tick them off and get them. And I agree with that to-do list. Like, what do you got to get started? Because you're right, it just disappears so fast. And you know what it's like. Someone knocks on your door and then boom, it's gone.
Yeah. Oh yeah, people are coming in August with their ideas that they thought of over the summer, and they can derail your ideas. There are things you need to get done, right? Matt, before we move on to what can wait for June, because that'll be our next thing, or what can wait for August, excuse me. You have something else for what you're doing in June?
Oh, well, this year is a little different because I have, I'm lucky to have an intern with me, which we talked about in previous episodes. So, still keeping him occupied and busy and making sure his experience is pretty worthwhile. That's been, but it's also been good because I have some extra help for all these things we're talking about, which is great because it's allowing me time to think of other things or work on other things. So that's been a bonus for sure. And then I am hosting this year in August the CISA Teachers Softball Tournament, as we know. So there'll be some preparation work. So I'm kind of doing a little bit here and there for that, just to make sure when we come back in August that stuff's done and we can quickly and easily move forward with the planning of that event. So just some other small things we're working on to tidy up and tie up the year.
Well,
and sorry, last thing I have too is we're going to be in a unique situation next year. We have a facility enhancement project going where we're going to be building another gym facility and adding on to our academic areas with an innovation center. And the planning stages are kind of in the development phase right now of gathering ideas and all that. So we've had a lot of meetings with that in the spring.
Cool.
And I think they're pretty wrapped up. But when we come back in August, that stuff's going to be full go with, okay, this is where the storage closet's going to go. This is where the weight room's going to be. This is where we're going to have the new gym. This is where the lab's going to, all that stuff's going to start happening hardcore next year, right? So that's been another piece of the puzzle, which will keep us even busier next year. Cool.
It's like when you go to IKEA and you're just like, you sit down at that desk and you're like planning out everything. Like, it's gonna look like
I hate IKEA. I hate IKEA.
No, those things are great.
I always say when you open up a package of IKEA and you start putting together, like IKEA is not the only 4-letter word you're going to say when you start getting into those projects.
So there we go. We are not ever getting sponsored by IKEA. It's over. The chance is gone.
Sorry.
Our team colors is blue and yellow, and we had striped blue and yellow shirts, and it really did look like we were Team IKEA at points. So
Well, you're
that was
close
the
to Sweden.
IKEA blue and yellow color as well. So maybe we should get on it.
Yeah.
They could sponsor us.
That would be your team bags, just IKEA, the blue bags with the yellow straps, team bags. One big thing in our office, which I know is for other people, is to make all bookings, at least for the fall. So group hotel bookings, travel. We make our group flight bookings already for the whole year. That's always done at the end of the year. But some office staff, some colleagues that work over the summer, so that's some of the things they do. Not necessarily me or right before June, but some things that some office staff can do over the summer. But super important.
Yeah. One last piece I try to do too, if it happens that in a particular year, is if we have staff who are leaving and they've coached, I've tried to do some kind of honor
Yeah.
them for their time, their service, either a write up in the weekly or we started doing this thing we're going to start doing a service award this year at our school, which is going to be nice. So, but that's something I'd like to do long term for coaches who've been around for a while, is give them some kind of long term, even just a little gift that says thank you for your time as a coach at ASB. But even just a little write up is something nice you can do for them.
Yeah.
Just to honor their time spent.
Do you do like a season wrap up each time and like a kind of roundup of the season, or do you do one big one at the end of the year?
So that's a good question, because
we both are different.
I were just talking that before we got on, and we actually do it quite differently, because he does the big end of year one, and I do it seasonally. So at the end of each season, we have team get-togethers where the teams wrap up their seasons together, and we kind of have like a team luncheon where they get together one more time. I designate classrooms and set up a lunch that the school covers, and the coaches come in, and we give out awards then for those particular teams. So it's in-house, but it's a nice thing to do.
Sure. Yeah, and I have the big one, but I have the big one middle school and one high school. But I wouldn't even consider that's a wrap up stuff for me. Like, not that you're saying it is for you, but because that's still part of the program. Like, that to me is like the last season, the athletic competitions end, but then we got another week, because then it's the banquets. So to me that's just part of the season.
Your last tournament.
Yeah, it's my last big tournament, I guess. And it was Monday and Tuesday, so I'm done now. I'm full in wrap up mode, full in coming in late and leaving a bit early. And wrapping up.
It is. I do have to say, this time of year is nice, because I did go home a couple times at 4:00 last week. I was like,
ooh,
what do people do? Is this how this works? You just leave at 4 and go do something? I surprised myself. It was good.
Well, that is definitely the last question for today, is when do we get out of there? When do we leave? But before we do that, let's go to the next part and talk about what can wait. What do you know needs to be done, but you put it on that to-do list for August. Finalize the team goals or the department goals for next year. So Rick, I wouldn't say puts off, but he puts that off to August to set some team goals. And then another one, we talked about coaches, and maybe I really work hard to make sure season 1 is done now, but I put off for sure for August, season 2 and season 3. What's on your to-do list for August?
We really got to hit the ground running when we get back with preparations for all the trips and confirming buses for our local events and all the ground transportation. We don't need to do that now, really. We start looking at air bookings now. It's a little tricky with our agency and what we do. We'd like to do it a year in advance, but we're finding out that that's harder and harder to do. So we have to really actually do it closer when we get back into the season. So those are some, those travel logistics are things we'll get going on straight away when I get back in August.
I was going to say that the winter season and the spring season is definitely things that I kind of want to have a rough skeleton structure of going, okay, I know roughly who's going to be doing those teams, and I know roughly what those games or schedules are going to be, but I wouldn't go into too much detail, because you need to see who's coming back in August. You might go, okay, my JV boys team, like 6 of them have left, so got to find out first how many new students are interested in that team. And yeah, we're hosting the U12 football volleyball tournament in November. So like we used to do the basketball, which was in March. So you always had that kind of like ease into the year, knowing, okay, March is a long way away, so I've got a bit of time. Whereas because we're hosting in November, we've got to get things going fast. And because it's a split site tournament, we'll have a football at a different club down the road, and getting them nailed down. And they can't confirm till August because they don't know their season schedule, and they have to make a request that they don't host games at their football pitch. So you go into August a little bit like, oh, but I guess that has to wait. Like I can't.
Yeah, yeah.
There's nothing I can do about it. I mean, you have an agreement in place verbally, but yeah.
Oh, one other thing I thought of too, not necessarily, but to do in August, but I don't know if you guys have summer camps, right, at your schools. It's not a major issue, but a lot of it's like making sure I coordinate with the summer camp count director that what's going to happen and when, and facilities are okay, and if they need access to it. But luckily, I don't give a lot of in the big picture. Actually, I don't give a lot of thought and effort into it because I'm out of there. It's not much.
I can't believe you have to do that. You have so much on your plate.
No,
like we don't do that.
I was also thinking that. I was like, I'm not doing that.
I said, okay, here's the bin of basketballs, that kind of stuff. It's nothing major, but it's like, oh yeah, one more thing I got to do.
Well, yeah, I mean,
don't call me. I'm going to be 5,000 miles away.
we have great people running our summer camp. It's Oti, who who's a PE teacher, so they know the ins and outs of all that stuff. Thankfully, Todd Parnham wrote about update his handbooks and his policies and procedures. And that's something I always look at in August as well. We have a yearly version of our coach's handbook and parent handbook, and I come back, I look through everything and just read it through. The least I do is change the date and say it's the new school year version, and then get that out. So that's something I put off.
Yeah, meeting new people as well. Meeting the new faculty when they arrive. That's a big deal. I usually come in a little early for that because they're already doing their orientation. So there's a time slotted in for me and our activity coordinator to kind of give them an overview of how things go.
Well, I guess it could depend on when you start your tryouts and athletics, right? So Craig Wislane said they start their tryouts on the second day of school. So that changes the whole start. Like we start our tryouts on the first full week, and we always start school on a Tuesday. So we have that almost a full week to meet kids, talk about it, advertise tryouts, do some other things, and then we start the next week. So what about you guys?
We always start on a Thursday, and we always then try to start that season on a Monday. Otherwise, I think we did one year where we started like a whole week later, and it was just way too long. The kids were like, "Can we just get started already?"
Yeah.
And I know that parents have given me feedback saying, "Why can we not start in June? Like, why can't we just start training in June and you start getting the team nailed down early?" And I was like, well, it's a lot of winding up, and that's really early, and also there's gonna be maybe some new students, and that would be difficult for them to like integrate into a team. I think it's great that they want to start so early. I think perhaps they're looking at it and going, well, there's this month of nothing. Like their seasons are done. Yeah. Whereas I think it's important for like as an administrator, like I need that time. I need that time to just kind of recap.
Yeah.
But we used to also have like a little kind of sports camp. It wasn't like an official advertised one. It was more like if you want to get ahead, then the coach is going to come in like 3 days before the first day of school, which was great. But it also, I think, like if you're a new student, then you're on that first day of your school. You're like, oh, they've already started training, and it's like, well, no, this is a team from last year. They got together, so
that's going on as it is, right? Just getting figuring out where they are and landing on their feet. Yeah, so for us, it's different every year because we have a holiday always on August 20th, which is Saint Stephen's Day, Saint István's Day here in Hungary, which is like the patron saint of the country. So it's always on August 20th, right? So our start of the school year always kind of is dictated by St. Stephen's Day when it falls. So, for example, this year, it falls on a Tuesday. So we're actually going to start school on a Wednesday. So it's not a lot of time to really get sports going. I think we're going to try to do like some open gyms, maybe by that Thursday, Friday. Some of the coaches asked if they can get going on Thursday or Friday. I said, yeah, I think we can go ahead and go. But I really got to figure it out I got to double check, see what our bus schedule is. I don't think the nurses will be ready to go by then. For sure, by the second week, we'll be up and going with tryouts and all that. But that first week's going to be tough to do anything with only 3 days.
Yeah. No.
Everybody.
Monday for sure.
I always have a slot to talk to the new staff. Like you have that orientation day for new staff where they meet the HR and they meet finance and all that stuff. I always find that that's great, but actually the slot that I really, really, really want is not the new staff because they're completely overwhelmed with all the new information. It's like the staff from last year and the current staff. Like they're the ones I really want to tackle first because there's always information that like they assume that they go, oh, that's what the sports program is. Oh, that's how they do it for trips. Whereas you really want to articulate and communicate as early as possible. This is how it works. So when I'm taking those kids out of your class, let's not try and plan assessments exactly on those days. Or, you want to keep them on side because I get it. Like you're the person who's ultimately asking them to change their schedules and take them out of the class, so they have to now make other plans, and you want to get on board and have that relationship. But they are also busy. Like I get that the principals are also like, yeah, we've got to communicate loads to our staff as well.
Yep.
Yeah, and having your preseason coaches meeting with that particular sport or that season, right? So the fall sports coaches preseason meeting, I'm trying to squeeze in that first week too. Yes. So that's still one thing I got to lock down. And I really want to build on that agenda too, because usually it's a set agenda I have, but there's more things that have come up I want to add into it or more focused towards like coaches' education and stuff. So like I still have to take some time and map out what that agenda is going to look like and see what it's going to happen.
Yeah, you need that beforehand. That was always my problem switching from fall to winter because we usually want to start right away. Yeah. And then I have to sometimes had the winter coaches meeting during the fall season with coaches doing double. They're like, hey, are you kidding me? Like, I don't want to talk about basketball right now. I'm still coaching soccer. But you got to do it. You got to do it.
Yeah, and those transitions between seasons is always tough. Like going back to the thing we were talking about, but like how do you wrap up your seasons? Like we did ones where we did slightly bigger ones in our aula to mark the end of each season. And we changed it this year that we do one big one at the end of the year. And we changed it mainly because like I felt like from my side, I'm like, it's too much of an epicenter of too much happening. You've got the wrap up, you've got the lateral end of season tournaments, you've got like the pre-meet for the new season, you've got like the sign up for your intramurals, you've got then the pizza party, and then you've got a bit like it becomes too much, and it all comes back to what size of department you have as well. Like for me, it's like it's a one-man show, so it's like you also have to manage your own energy levels. And I always feel like this end of year stuff also comes back to this question of like, well, I'm assuming that next year is going to be more. Like we're going to be doing more, and that is always like the battle. Is like. Not saying yes to going, we'll do that, we'll do this, and we'll do that, because you know that then ultimately it comes back and it's like you suffer from it.
Yeah.
And
there's things that you want to do. I think that's part of the people that become ADs is you want to always do better for your kids and your coaches. And I wrote an article for Ty last year about the summer of an AD because I really think we don't have to, if we want to make some big changes to our program or improve something, it's hard to do it now. You're wrapping things up. It's hard to do it at the beginning of the year for all the things we just talked about. So for me, during the summer, I'm constantly working on something. Not all the time, but there's some things I'll just, a couple hours this week or do a couple things or research or read some books, like that I want to do because there's just no other time. But I do want things to improve. So it's like this balance, right? Some of your energy and your
it's a
budget.
Really, you've got to be super disciplined, and in terms of like how you use your time and how you say no to things and how you say yes to things, but and also your holiday, like it's it's your holiday, so you
Yeah.
want to spend time with your family and stuff.
Yeah.
But like you said, you're like, well, I'm also know that this whole program is like a giant ship, and if we want to turn it, it takes so much energy and time.
Yeah.
And if you turn it in the wrong direction a little bit, then you're like, gotta now turn it all the way back that way. So you really have to you need to plan as far ahead as possible and hit all those key marker points. But it's so hard because the landscape is just changing constantly.
Right.
Yeah.
There's always so many pieces that are moving. So
that's true.
Yeah.
People in and out. Well, we are getting close to wrapping up the season, the year, the episode. And all of us probably leave at different times and do different things. So let's talk about, when do you check out, or if you check out? Let me read one by you. Before I go to you guys, Chris Mott, our good friend, last day of school, he flies out wherever he's going all the time. That's what he said. School year's over, we're out of there, in the air. Craig Wislane, who says he has 2 extra weeks at the start of the summer because he's admin contract, but he really enjoys it because it's quite downtime and can get a lot of work done. A lot of this planning stuff. What about you guys? Matt, what about you first? When do you check out physically or mentally?
No, it's funny too for me because they always ask me to turn my keys back in. Every year I'm like, why? Because I'm gonna be back before you do, and I'm gonna, our school too for me is also like a community center because it's got we have the weight room there. I like to go work out and do stuff, and so like I'm not turning my keys in. Sorry. So that's one thing, but
that's so weird.
Yeah. So, but as soon as everything wraps up, I like to, if I can't, I don't want, I'm going to stick around for a little bit in the country, or I'd like to go on a trip somewhere in Europe and go do some stuff I like to do, like mountain biking, or go do some hiking, get to the mountains, or, this year we have a different trip coming up because my brother's coming over who's not been to Europe for a while with his wife. So we're going to do some travels with them. So, but yeah, as soon as things wrap up, it is, you need some decompression time, right? You need that time for yourself to, for me, I know when I'm in a good place when I get to the point in the summer holiday where I have to say to somebody or myself, like, what's today? What day is today? Because you get to that point, and that's a really good sign that you're on vacation. You're doing the right thing with giving yourself some time off and getting your head straight, right? So that's a good point I like to get towards. So now, but this year I'm not going to be going back to the home until July 3rd, so I'll be sticking around Europe for a little bit.
Yeah. What about you, Tom? When you check out?
I used to always kind of mentally, and I would always plan that week after, once everyone's gone, that's the week where I'm leaving a lot of big stuff because I know that no one's there, all the kids are gone, and I can focus. And if my son is in kindergarten, I'm like, great, I can take him to kindergarten, drop him off, go to work. There's no one here, and I can wrap up a whole bunch of stuff. I actually find that that gentle wind down, but I actually find that then that gentle wind down becomes 2 weeks. And then you're like, okay, I'll now finish. I'm gonna go on holiday. I'm gonna switch off. And then you find that you're like checking a couple of emails, and you like it's really hard to let go, I think. And then you start back earlier than you planned, and you go, I'm gonna come back a week before the school starts, and then it's 2 weeks, and then you kind of like you're caught in between resting and working, and it's all a bit, and then you become really frustrated. You're like, I should have just took the time off. So this year's actually a little bit easier because last year, because I bought a house last year and we renovated, like I remember we finished school, we bought the house, and then we were renovating the entire summer. And it was so exhausting. I remember starting the school year exhausted, totally mentally and physically drained. So by the time I got to like February, I was done already. And it's just a lot. So this year has been really easy to be like, I'm taking a summer. Yeah. And this is probably the first June where I've really focused on going, use June to get done, and then you can go, and then you rest. And it's really good. I think also the Euros is happening, and I got tickets for the Euros. So I know that like as soon as it's last day of school, I'm going to Berlin because it's the Euros. So that's also making it easier to be like, well, you don't have that first week because you've already got stuff planned. So actually, I'm in favor of Chris. Is it Chris? Chris Mont?
Yep.
Yeah. Like, book a ticket, get out.
Yeah.
Get out as fast as you can, and then detach from work, and then it'll probably be easier to start back again. That's what I think now. Yeah. I really do think that.
It's funny. I think I had years of sticking around a couple days, like actually going into work, doing the things that you said, a little bit quiet, maybe just a couple hours, like, okay, sort some uniforms at the end, put some music on. And I really liked it. But then 3 years ago, we started to like, hey, if we fly right away, our holidays are way cheaper, because we're done in mid-June. So the last 2 years and this year, we go on holiday right away. 2 weeks, full family, usually before the main season starts. But then I come back and I don't go into work, but then I start to work on a little bit of stuff just to finish some things, answer some emails that came in, like we'll be on holiday and Matt's still in school, for example. So, just check some emails, kind of do a little bit, and then I'm out again. So I kind of have these like two like down periods in the summer with a little bit of checking in the middle, and I've really enjoyed it the last couple of years. So I don't know, it feels like I get too many breaks, but they're I'm totally checked out in those mini breaks. So I feel like I'm not too swamped in August, but I've had a great downtime too. So
I was going to say the whole year is a bit of a marathon. Like, you're really building up the whole year, and you have to really pace it, because if like in that first fall season you go full out, like you're also so done by the winter season, you're a bit like, oh, you've kind of really got to pace it. And I always feel a little bit like you need to kind of transition out of it as well. But because like this June, like I was saying earlier, it can be a bit dangerous, because if you stop too quickly, you just crash and you go into like teenage student mode where you're like sleeping in, you're like grumpy, and you're all irritable, and you're like getting into really bad habits too early.
Yeah. There's like nothing on Netflix anymore. Why is there nothing on Netflix?
Like you go into holiday mode way too early, and you've got to you really got to pace it. So it's like finishing a 42K run and then being like, okay, but I've still got a 5K in me.
Reality, once you get 2 weeks away from work, a week and a half, it's just like it's really in the background. So I think that comes with time too, right? And experience with managing the ups and downs and the flow of the year. And then really when you get the time off to really just get into it, enjoy it, and switch off, because you got to do it. It's
super hard to let go, though. It's so hard. I find that it's such an emotional. You are so emotionally attached to it. It's really hard to just let go and be like, it's okay. It's really hard.
We got another question for you in a second, Tom. But I said a few names, but I had a lot of different things from people that helped shape the episode for us. So even if I didn't say exactly some things you said, thanks to Rick Floyd, Anthony Hennelly, Kelly McKenna, Todd Parham, Ella Ugate, Chris Mott, and Craig Wislang. Thanks for answering my call for some help.
So Tom, one of the things we love to ask our guests, and thanks for joining us once again, is a little bit about their city that they're living and working in, or the location, and something that's either pretty cool about it or interesting. And if you're coming to your location, what should we be looking out for or try out? Maybe a little bit something about the food or the culture there. So what do you got for us about Hamburg? I don't know a lot about Hamburg. I've never been there.
Well, first of all, Hamburg is a great city. I love it. I don't think I'd still be living here if it wasn't. And I used to live in Glasgow, which is also a really cool city, but Hamburg is pretty special as well. What is if you're here in the summer, we've obviously got it's hosting some of the European Championships, and I always feel like Hamburg is like, if you've not been to Berlin, like Berlin's pretty intense. It's quite an intense place. Like there's a lot going on. It's very like there's got a good music scene, but it's very intense. it's not as intense as Berlin. And I feel like Munich is quite traditional. It's quite a rich city. So it's not quite as far as that. It's like in between. So it's got a good green aspect to it. It's very, very, a lot of nature, a lot of nice, very, very clean city. But it's also kind of got like a roughness to it, I think. Like the whole St. Pauli area is amazing. And Reeperbahn, Reeperbahn, if you don't know Reeperbahn, just try it out and you'll know pretty quickly what it is. It's like the whole party life. And it's pretty unique. And there's just, I find like, when I first came here, I remember like being overwhelmed by how good the cycle lanes are, because like cycling in Glasgow was terrifying. Like you would get crushed by a bus. There's giant potholes. There's somebody yelling at you and throwing stuff at you. Like it was crazy cycling in Glasgow. Whereas in Hamburg, it's just like a joy. It's great. Cycle lanes, amazing. And food, loads of great food restaurants. There's like great restaurant in the Altena area where I used to live, which is a Peruvian South American restaurant, and it's amazing. I love it. All about South American food. And good taco place called St. Pablo's, which is actually closed at the moment because they're renovating a bridge where it is. But that taco place, I'm not joking, is amazing. So good. It wasn't like a sit-down taco place. It was literally like a window, and then you get tacos and have beers, and you just stand on the street and chat to people. It was great. Many good times just having a taco, having a drink, chatting to people. And I love Hamburg. It's great. Super friendly. I always feel like I've never had problems with any of the people here. They're always super friendly, always super welcoming. And two good football teams. St. Pauli are now in the Bundesliga, which is the top division. So that's always good. St. Pauli is always good fun to go to. And it's cheap. Like Bundesliga football is really cheap to go to. It's not like €100 in the Premier League or anything like that. It's like €16, great day of football, have fun. And Hamburg is also a good football team as well. That's also good. And they're totally different. So
you just planned a day for us, Tom. We're going to get some bikes.
We're
going to ride to a taco place, then to the football game, and then finish at the Reeperbahn. It sounds perfect.
This is pretty much what I've got planned for my brother. He's coming for the Euros. We're going together. He's never been to Hamburg before. I've never seen him on a bike before. So I'm going to get him on a bike. We're going to go for food. We're going to go to the football. And then, he's going to experience all the joys of Hamburg.
Perfect. Just like you experienced all the joys of being on a podcast today, Tom. That was it. First podcast episode.
First podcast. Yeah.
Cool.
I'm excited for someone to hear it and be like, your jokes are terrible.
Nah.
Hey, well, thanks for joining us, Tom, and some great stuff with chatting about what we're all doing out there. So we hope somebody out there heard this and maybe they got something to add into their end of year stuff. Or if we added a little more to your plate, sorry, didn't mean it. I think we all know how busy our jobs are with this.
The plate always gets bigger and bigger. The plate always gets bigger.
It gets bigger. So it's all about management, time management, and taking time for yourself and making sure you're balancing it all out. So appreciate having you on the show and the insight, and great to meet you today.
Thanks, Tom.
Thanks for having me on. Loved it. Absolutely loved it. It's great.
Well, that was pretty good. A wrap-up episode to wrap up our season 5, Matt.
Yeah, good stuff. And I hope we got some good ideas out of that. I think it just goes to show, right? The job just never stops. It just keeps going and going. But all for good purposes, because I think that's a sign that we're always striving to make our programs better, to keep things organized, to keep things on time. And it's always taken a lot of thought and effort, of course, on our part to make sure those things are working correctly and making sure we have quality programs for the kids and the coaches that are the main drivers of our program. So, it's a good opportunity to share those ideas.
Right. Summertime, though, now, and wrapping up this year. So what are you looking forward to?
Yeah.
Either in the summer or any big things next year, aside from what you mentioned?
we're almost done here. So when we get out of here, I am going to, my brother and his wife are coming over for a little holiday of their own. So we're going to do a tour of Europe. I'm going to take them to Rome. I've planned out a whole itinerary. It's kind of a thank you for them for taking care of our
Nice.
kids who are, or my son is in college. When he goes home, they always put him up, take good care of him. So this is a kind of way to pay it back a little bit by planning out a little trip for them. I'm not paying for everything, but I am planning everything, booking everything. So
Yeah.
then when
You're
they
planning
get
it.
out of here, I'll stick around for a little bit, and then I'm going to be in the U.S. for the month of July, and then back here in August to have a little relax, and then kick everything back off when I have to report. I think it's August 12th.
Our first date. Oh, I think ours is later. Or ours is earlier.
No, I don't know.
I don't know. I don't want to think
I
about
want to
that
get, like
right
I said
now.
earlier, I want to get to
I
that
have,
point where I don't know what the date is. That's my primary main objective later this month is to arrive to that point where I don't know what the day is, and I need to ask.
There it is. Well, I got 3 weeks in Croatia, some island hopping, and then last year I had that mini trip to Cleveland to hang out with you. But this year, when I'm home, I have some mini trip to Montreal and Ottawa, as well as some days anyway, a week in Niagara.
Are you
So
going
those
to
are our
go to
big
Croatia? Are you
summer
going to Split
plans
at all?
for sure. Yeah, we're taking an overnight train and to Split, and then
Are you going to
some days there, and then we go to the islands right out there.
That's
Yeah,
nice.
we will.
Don't tell anybody though. We
Yeah.
want to keep that place a secret.
Yeah. Well, that's why I'm going right away in June, not till main
you
season
staying
yet,
in
so to be
Komesia?
quieter. Hope so.
That's a nice.
No.
That's nice. Well, I mean, it's a small island. You go from one side to the other in about 20 minutes. So
Yeah, that's good. Big thing for next year. Obviously, the 3D course will be great, but for me, I'm gonna go to Thailand in November without you, Matt. But I'm gonna go to the Phase conference in person in Thailand. Really excited. Thank you, Chris Mott.
Yeah, you'll have to represent. Unfortunately, I have it
Matt
on the same weekend, so I can't get out of that one this time. But next year is going to be a busy year because we have some major events that I have to plan my personal time around with a wedding and my son's graduation from college. So it's going to be a wacky year with the travel. So I have to be conscious of my schedule and my allotted time out of my primary work responsibility.
Yes, I would then also add that I haven't told anybody except for maybe you, but I won't go to the NADC then next year in December.
This year.
I need to take a year break.
Yeah,
because it's too close. Yeah. The conference in November is too close to the conference in December, and I've never been to Asia, so I have to take that opportunity to go. So I will not be at the NADC.
I was going to make the same
in Austin.
announcement. I will also be taking a skip this year due to us wanting to have a Christmas holiday here in Hungary this year, and with my back from college
Not in the U.S.
They want to come back.
But we'll be back in Florida the year after that, right?
Look,
back in Florida.
A year and a half from now in Tampa. That'll be amazing. In fact, I was thinking about it the other day, like, because we're doing this big renovation project, and I thought I might want to take some time to go and check out some really nice weight room facilities of colleagues we have in the U.S. in their schools. And how many times have you and I talked about we got to go see Jason in Oklahoma, right? And now I'm thinking, this might be this might be the time.
So there you go,
Jason, if you're listening.
Yeah, it's a year and a half away.
Space.
Year and a half you're talking about.
Might be coming. So I got to work all those arrangements out. But yeah,
all right. Well,
as always, exciting stuff to plan and look forward to. Never a dull moment. And can't wait for my break. But then, when that time comes and goes, it'll be exciting to look forward to the reboot of next year and all the beginnings that it will bring.
Yeah, exactly. No, it'll be a good year with another season of Globetrottin
For sure.
AD
Yeah, it's hard
podcasts
to,
as well.
hey, we did season 5.
Yeah.
We got our 100th episode. That was a big deal. And we put another one in the can.
Yep.
So we hope everybody who had a chance to listen enjoyed it. And you got something out of it, some new ideas to share. And as always, we hope to keep it going for you and keep this community alive and helpful for everybody.
Awesome.
Enjoy.
Have a great summer.
Don't get us burned.
Until next week, this has been another episode of the Globetrottin ADs.